The original Crash Bandicoot had some differences compared to the Japanese release. What were they? And why? Well, let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and back with a new video. Crash Bandicoot is an icon. He has mass popularity across the world, with multiple countries being in absolute love with him. But the one country that does love Crash is also Japan. Now, this is actually somewhat of a rarity. While North America gets quite a few Japanese games that become big hits overall, North American games don't get too popular in Japan. Many analysts point to the game genre as being a huge impact, as well as marketing having to fit Japanese tastes. But the North American analysts suggest that the localization is normally poorly done when it comes to North American games going to Japan. Essentially, the only translations that they do is to get the idea of what the Japanese player needs to do. Overall, North American games don't intrigue Japanese audiences, but there is exceptions. One of those was Crash Bandicoot. For its time, back in the late 90s, according to unit sales and by foreign design games in Japan, the Crash Bandicoot series was the best game to have ever released from a North American market. Crash took multiple spots in what they called the Platinum Games list, and for the time, Crash was the most notable North American game to become popular in Japan. But why? Remember how I said North American games were marketed poorly in Japan? Well, this was not the case for Crash. Sony knew exactly how to market Crash to the Japanese market. Crash was not marketed as a foreign game, so many Japanese people likely thought that it was a Japanese game and didn't know that it was made in North America. They also created this mascot and song that Japan absolutely loved and made sure to let everyone know during the PlayStation 1's peak that Crash existed to every person possible. Crash was also extremely popular with women in their early 20s, as at the time, having a PlayStation 1 was a popular trend for young women in Japan, and Crash Bandicoot was a small orange animal that people thought was absolutely adorable and cute. This was reflected in the difference between the covers of the game. The original Crash cover was seen as angry, mean, and looking like he was going to destroy something, while the Japanese version looked softer, goofier, and overall cuter. Because of his popularity in Japan and North America, Sony felt they found somewhat a mascot to try to go toe-to-toe with Nintendo's Mario and Sega's Sonic. Another reason why it got so popular in Japan is because there is little to no speech in the game. Crash doesn't talk, and besides a cinematic or two, the game does not require a bunch of localization translation, as the game is quite straightforward. So now that we know why Crash was successful in Japan, let us dig into what differences were made and how it affected not only the Japanese version, but also the North American release. First up, the game's overall difficulty. You might be shocked to find out that the original Crash Bandicoot was supposed to be harder than it is now. In the original playtest of the game, specifically, Japanese playtesters gave very negative feedback overall, saying that the game was way too difficult and they just kept dying unfairly. So, Mark Cerny, a huge lead within PlayStation, spent about 6 months adjusting the difficulty of the game to make it easier. The final product's overall difficulty was applied to both the North American and Japanese versions. A lot of the original Crash levels are witty in the North American tongue, but sadly it does not translate correctly to Japanese. For example, Insanity Beach was translated to Mazami Beachy, which roughly translates to Wake Up Beach, which in itself becomes an American witty name again. We've come full circle, but in Japanese, it's a much softer and overall gentler name. TNT crates were changed from having the text that said TNT to having a bomb symbol. This made things a lot more clear to Japanese players as to what the crate was meant to do. Now, Aku Aku in the game is the mask that follows you and protects you, but in the Japanese version, he is also someone who relays tips to Crash Bandicoot about the controls in general and for the specific level and the secrets within it. Coco's design was also heavily inspired by Japanese tastes. See, to quickly summarize, because a whole video could be done on this alone, Tana was a highly controversial character. She was in a sense a Bandicoot bombshell and caused mixed reactions to different studio heads. Naughty Dog wanted to maintain the look that they had for her, which already was a compromise from an earlier concept, but Universal and the Japanese markets were not a fan. So Tana was swapped out in the second game and was replaced with Crash's sister, Coco. Even Coco's original design that Charles Zembillas had sketched, and then yet another designer took that sketch and colored it, was still too much. So they went for the overalls and, well, overall, more cute and dorky, which was more popular in Japan. In the Japanese release of the game, however, renders showed that Coco had brown eyes compared to the North American Coco, who had green, to better match the Japanese culture. Crash Bandicoot and his effect on the gaming world is quite significant. It reaches even farther out than some realize. But what do you guys think of the differences in Crash in the Japanese market? Comment below and let me know. A huge thank you to all those who support the channel through Patreon and being a sponsor on the channel. If you'd like to help it out, check out the links in the description below, where you can buy some CGE merch or become a Patreon. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming and nostalgic content. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next video.